perfect. Mics are on. Good evening, everybody. All right, welcome to the work session for April 4th, 2023 at 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Orndorff.
Here.
Commissioner Hewitt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Suey.
Here.
Commissioner Watson.
Here.
Commissioner Romanek.
Here.
All right, salute of the flag. If I would stand for the salute of the flag, you would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Clerk, clerk, have there been any changes to the agenda? Excuse me.
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation for this evening.
Okay, so Community Solar Project at 2102 2nd Street. We have a presentation by Betsy McBride, so I just want to make sure that mic is on for you. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, everyone. I have been here before. My name is Betsy McBride. I am a senior consultant with Solar Landscape, and we currently have 2 community solar projects in Millville, and this presentation tonight is for a third one in year 3 that is going to the open application for Board of Public Utilities was just opened on Thursday, so it's perfectly timed that I'm coming to you today. I do have a handout. If I can hand it out, then you can follow along and take it home and file it in your circular file.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you very much again. Betsy McBride. I'm former mayor of Pennsauken, and the recipient of one of the state's first community solar projects. Now there are 2 in Pennsauken, and there are approximately 120 around the state. Millville is a great place to have community solar because the state requires that 51% of the people who can subscribe to the project need to be low and moderate income families. So it's a great opportunity for your residents to save money on electric while greening the local landscape. The solar panels go on top of rooftops of commercial properties, and then the power goes into the grid so all of your residents can participate. It goes into ACE's grid. They have to retire that amount of dirty fuel commensurate with the amount of solar that's coming into the grid. The panels aren't on the ground, so you don't see them, but they are closer to the sun, obviously, because they're on a warehouse roof. And the company, Solar Landscape, leases the space from the property owner. So they get income from the space lease of the top of their building, and then we maintain the project for 20 years, guaranteed, and it does get grandfathered in if there was a change in the ownership of the property. So we're cleaning the local air. We are benefiting our electric customers, of which we all are electric customers, by being able to save 25% in Millville, and we are, because there's access for everybody, there's more energy equity. In other words, we have people who have a bigger part of their monthly income spent on utilities, and so let's cut the amount that they pay for their utilities, and then they have more money to address other concerns of their families. The state started the program in 2018 as part of the Energy Master Plan for the whole state. So there are municipalities all over the state passing resolutions to welcome these projects into their town. Those resolutions then accompany the application with the Board of Public Utilities, who has 100% oversight for this project or any of the projects. The residents do not pay to get in. They don't opt in or opt out. And they don't have any long-term contract. So it's a win-win situation. The hardest part is educating the residents that this is not a scam, that this is not too good to be true. It is really what it is. You know, there's no fees, there's no contracts, and you're saving 25%. And all you do is tell ACE that you want that power instead of that power. Before you, for your meeting, for your general meeting, is a resolution which is for that property at 2102 to 2122. Main Street? I forgot what's. Second Street.
North Second Street.
Second Street. The other two projects that are currently being built out are on Wheaton Avenue. So 1300 and 1401 Wheaton Avenue. You passed resolutions under different leadership last time for that round two project, those two round two projects. This time we're asking for your support for year three, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
So, I just want to
yep.
clarify, this project is already being, the 2102 and -22, that's in,
No, we will be applying with the Board of Public Utilities to be approved to go
for
to.
that, okay, gotcha.
For
That
that
was
project,
backwards. Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
The two that are already approved
Are
are
on
the
Wheaton
Wheaton Avenue.
Backwards, okay.
But that's what it'll look like. So, you know, it'll be up on top of a roof and no one will see it, but you'll see it from a drone like that.
I may have missed something,
Sure.
and you might repeat yourself, but how does this affect the business that the solar panels are on top of?
Not at all. So traditionally, the building might be a warehouse. So it doesn't really require that amount of power that would be generated from those panels to operate the operation within the building. If it were a school, you need their lights and your heat and your air conditioning, sometimes not, you know, refrigeration, all kinds of things to operate the school. So power from the panels would be going directly down into the building for operations. In these cases, there's very little happening in these buildings, so they don't need that power. They take a little portion of that power to operate down below, and the rest is available for the grid. It goes out into the grid and it becomes available to residents.
So the business has power, and
Yep.
also the residents can have up to 25%.
Yes, correct.
I think the two questions I had was, pulling right out. The company that is going to be having the solar on top of their business, is there a lease with you, or you already have some kind of agreement with
We have
them,
an
correct?
executed lease with them already, yes.
Okay. And is the resolution of support from the city something that that was required from the state for you to receive? Why are you asking for the letter of support from the city?
So, good question. The applications for the Board of Public Utilities are very comprehensive, and we get support from lots of different like organizations, nonprofit organizations, maybe an environmental commission. We have a workforce development program. We have a Green Ambassadors program, so we would have support from the schools. The more support you have, the more comprehensive the program is in benefiting the residents and the community, the better the chances that you get approved for the project.
Understood. I think, Mr. Russell, question, if I would assume that you were a solicitor under the last commission that approved the last resolution.
Yes.
Have there been any issues with the Wheaton properties that would hinder us not giving a letter of support? Like the past commission obviously was supportive of it.
No, I don't think so. And
Anything that would,
It's my understanding that this commission really doesn't have any problem with solar as long as it's on top of buildings, which is what the applicant is proposing, and you're not wasting, valuable space that's zoned or land that's zoned industrial.
industrial.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanna perfect to clarify that.
So,
Thank
you know, I was known as the green lady from Pennsauken, and I was particularly worried about solar coming and taking up all of our green spaces, you know. So we would have, our parks would have solar panels everywhere. And this was, you know, a solution. And it did all the things that I wanted to do, which is out of sight, out of mind, long-term leases, give back to the community in workforce development, job training, and good discounts to people who most need it. But the biggest part was get it up on top of a roof where nobody's going to see it.
Appreciate it.
Anybody
Thank you.
else?
Yeah,
Yes,
one
sir.
more, I'm sorry. So residents, they would get a hold of Atlantic City Electric. They would opt to go with clean energy. And just speaking, just because I just don't know, how does this affect Atlantic City Electric? You know, we're saying a resident gets 25% off their electric bill. Like, how does it affect them? Does that take business away from them? Like, what do they do to compensate for the money that
So
they're
they're still the keeper of the power. So any power that isn't designated out, they still are, you know, in charge of. They do all the interconnection and all the transmission of power. If in the scenario where you had, which of course these days, who knows what the weather's going to be, you know, if we had rain for 30 days, you wouldn't be capturing any sun. So they just assume the electric grid that already is in place would come from the fossil fuel generating fuel. It's not going to eliminate it. It's a good question whether they lose any money. I don't think they do. I think there are incentives for them through the Board of Public Utilities to begin to transfer, you know, or change over the type of power that they generate. And in PSE&G, and I don't know about ACE, they were doing all those solar panels on telephone poles that, you know, as you drive down the road, they started to do that. They've begun to look at it as just an alternative type of energy generation. And they still are the keeper of the energy.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank
Ye-
you so much. Oh, go
Yes,
ahead.
real quick.
Yes,
The
Commissioner.
2102, that looks like it's the Union Lake Crossing Center. Is that correct? I just quick Google search. I'm pulling up Cole's house. You know, Cole's businesses, and it looks like it's the adjoining businesses as well as that next shopping mall where we have Target and ShopRite and so forth.
Right.
You just said previously that there's businesses where these solar panels are going to be placed on top that they don't use a lot of power. Is that a lot of power as in of concurring to what the power that these panels are going to totally produce? Or how is that mitigated between?
So I would need to just check, and I can do this in a minute by texting somebody. I don't think it's attached to the shopping center. It's the empty buildings that are next to it, and those have different property owners. But I don't want to say that without making sure. But whenever Solar Landscape is looking at whether they, what lease payments they're going to give to the property owner of the building, it's dependent on how much power they're going to need for operations down below. So,
Okay.
so, you
That-
know.
I
if-
understand.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so if they're gonna need a lot of power here, then you're not gonna get as much money for the lease payment above.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Coming off that question, it just keeps going. The
okay.
the building, you said it was not in use. Like, would that affect like anybody that want to lease out that property? Like, would they have to get in some kind of agreement?
It's grandfathered in, so the panels would be there,
Yeah.
we'd still be maintaining it. I believe that the lease negotiation, if they were going to do full operations down there, so maybe there was a tool shop or something like that, that would be a renegotiated lease based on the amount of power that they would be using on a daily basis.
Yeah, basically, what I was asking, I didn't want it to be like a deterrent for somebody wanting to lease that building if they had to get a lease for the solar panels.
Yeah, no. A lot of the ones that we do are storage facilities. They're already built out, and that's what they're just for people to put their public storage units.
So I think that So, as Commissioner Romnick said, that is the Target shopping center, so I think that's like leased through somebody else, and there would be leases through a company. So you'd be leasing through the company that leases that property out,
Correct.
the new company that just bought it, okay.
Yes.
I think I see what you're saying, if
Like, basically, I didn't want it, like, if there was some kind of lease agreement for a business to go in there, like a store, I mean, we wouldn't want a warehouse right there next to all their shopping centers, shopping area. We'd want another store.
Yep.
So if a store wanted to pay that and was gonna use X amount of power, if there was like some kind of agreement that had to be made in order to, like, get in there, it wouldn't deter that business from doing so.
No, and I
Like, if that
wouldn't,
makes
I wouldn't
sense.
want to, presume that either.
Right.
You would want an occupied, store, in a shopping center rather than a vacant spot. So let me just clarify with my boss which one is, what the criteria is there. And then I'll stick around and, let you know as you break between the two meetings. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. I
Thank you.
appreciate the questions, though. That's one I should have had in my back pocket when I got here. Anybody else? Thank you so much for your time. I will look that up and get right back to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Betsy.
Thank you.
Thank
To discussions, please.
We have no discussions, Mayor?
We don't.
Wait, on ours?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have this one. I'm sorry. I was looking at discussions, Commissioners. We do. We have the library lease terms of agreement. I'm sorry.
I'm either blind or I don't know what's going on.
I know, I missed that.
It's only Tuesday,
I
guys.
scratched up my whole agenda
Everybody
here.
wants to
My
be outside.
apologies.
I get it.
All right, if I may. So you guys should be in a receipt of a letter from the Millville Public Library.
Yes.
So I'm going
Correct.
to read the letter, and I'll explain how we came about to get this letter. So the letter says, "Dear Mayor and Commissioners, the Library Board of Trustees."
Can you speak into the mic, 'cause I don't know if they can hear you.
Can't hear me? I'm not loud enough. Dear Mayor and Commissioners, the Library Board of Trustees wants to make it very clear that it intends to use the entire library building for public library use under the terms of the lease with the city. The requirements of the State Library Construction Bond Agreement and in accordance with the direction of and expectations of our patrons, donors, and supporters. As you know, the library has been serving the citizens of Millville for almost 160 years, and we intend to continue to do so. Finally, the board would appreciate being included in any discussion involving the library, its building, and the use thereof. So what happened is, the library requested a meeting. Myself, Mr. Russell, Administrator Compari were there for our side. I can't remember if Sam Cruz was there or not. The library sent Mr. Aronoff and Courtney Reese and Mr. Richards. So during that, they asked for $48,000 for their electric bill, which they said they couldn't pay. I explained to them that we really don't have $48,000 to give you. We are in the midst of a 5-cent tax increase, and the money just isn't there. So the answer is no. So during the course of the discussion, we discussed several different ways which they could possibly raise revenue. None seemed amenable. We got into how much space they're going to have, that they're going to let people use for free. Also, we found out that after the new library addition is being built, then the old library addition will be renovated. I also asked them about the heat. Okay, you don't have enough money for electricity, how's the building going to be heated? They said gas. I said, where are you going to get the money for that? They said, well, we didn't even think about that. So in light of the letter saying, and I'll get into a little bit more in a minute, but in light of the letter saying terms of lease are they're supposed to pay their utility bills. Secondly, they get a substantial amount of aid from the city that is not in the lease, which yearly is $532,999.80. So that's, library is running at the expense of the taxpayers. So we began to look for additional revenue streams. So I approached a nonprofit to ask them if they would be interested, if I could get the library to say it would be okay for them to use part of that space and perhaps they could reach a lease agreement. That nonprofit entity told me no. And that was the end of the conversation. I never approached the library to ask them. A couple days later, we meet with another nonprofit in an attempt to, we were talking about some other items, in an attempt to find additional sources of revenue. We brought up the library, talked about it. Again, we reached no consensus, but at least we talked about it. So what we're trying to do is find revenue for the library that they can't seem to find for themselves. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing in the lease that says we can't discuss sources of revenue for anything in the city, and we have to have the library board there. So I don't know why they got upset. Perhaps they thought they were going to lose control, lose money, lose whatever, lose part of the building. Nothing would have happened without their agreement. Shouldn't have been a misunderstanding. Shouldn't have been a letter sent, but it was. But I want you folks to keep in mind how much we are actually giving to that library. And the other thing that the library consistently tells us is businesses coming in here, they really want a good library. Well, I don't know how many developers I've talked to, Mr. Capari's talked to, and not one has asked us about the library. They asked us about our schools, they asked us about crime, they asked us about our infrastructure. They asked many things, but nobody's ever said, hey, what's your library like? Let me go see it. Never happened. So, you know, I'm not against the library. I don't think any of you guys are against the library. But if they're going to exist, they're going to have to find alternative sources of funding unless you guys are okay with paying another 10 cents a year of property taxes to support everything. But that's going to be up to you guys. So you tell us what you want us to do. So what I proposed to Mr. Ethan Aronoff of the library board, and he's going to propose to his board tonight, that's what he told me on a telephone conversation yesterday, is that we form a committee, perhaps with 1 or 2 commissioners, 1 or 2 members of the library board, and some members of the public to have some business acumen to try to find them additional sources of revenue. So hopefully they'll come back, the board will come back and say, okay. And then we'll worry about that. And I believe they think I have a skewed view of the library, which maybe I do at this point, I don't know. So I am not going to be on that committee. You guys can certainly do it after work. I wouldn't want them to think that somebody with a skewed point of view was on that committee. It would defeat the purpose of it. So anyway, that's what I want to discuss about the library. I don't know if you guys have any other questions or anything, something for you guys to think about, something for them to think about.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I did read over the lease agreement, and the numbers that you're providing are helpful to understand what they're asking for, but what they're actually already responsible for. And if they can't handle what they're currently responsible for in the smaller building, how are they going to handle that once the building is double or triple the size? I think that would be anybody's concern. And a 50-year lease, you know, I think it would be the library's best interest to find more streams of revenue, whatever that may be. So I think that's a good idea to try to create a board and have the public's input and see what we can do. I think the library is an asset to the city. Others may not feel that way. I mean, I know going there when I was younger, I don't go to the library so much, and a lot of people think that books are going to disappear eventually. You know, hopefully that doesn't happen because there's a lot of history in books, and kids still need to go to the libraries and do research papers and everything. But hopefully it's an updated library. From what I'm being told, they're doing a lot of updating, and with all the conversations we've had with the colleges, that maybe it will be a great resource to the students that will be on High Street, the Clay College, taking other classes. It's another source for them to use. So I hope the library is open to having that board and
Further into the discussion of everything. Yes, I'm well aware of everything that was happening. Vice Mayor is right in all what he said regarding what we give currently as a city. It's been there, like they said in that the letter, 160 years. Books, unfortunately, paper books are not being used. E-books is all the new rage. Mainly senior citizens and our young group use that library, and I think it is a very valuable asset to the city of Millville, and they're expanding for all the right reasons. But the way that it is in their predicament right now, it's not conclusive in going in further and being substantial. Obviously, times have changed. That's what my main point is. But I hope that this newfound board, be made, does help and further the existence of the Millville Public Library.
Are they gonna, I'm assuming you're expecting a phone call back from Mr.
I'm sure I'll
to-
hear something. Hopefully I'll get a call back. If not, I will call Mr. Aronoff tomorrow
Okay.
and let you guys, well, let one of you know anyway.
Any other questions, concerns of anybody else of the library? Don't all speak at once, okay. We will move on to public comment on agenda items only. If anybody has any comments or concerns on the agenda, please come to the podium, state your name and those concerns, and please limit those comments to 5 minutes.
Hi, I have a question regarding the solar.
May I have your name and your address, please?
My name is Tamara, I'm in Millville. So I might have to direct this towards you, Ms. McBride. You mentioned that you're going to be maintaining the solar panels for 20 years, and solar panels have a shelf life. So what happens after the 20 years? Who is responsible for it after that?
So they renegotiate the lease and they would replace the panels that are.
And who's the they?
Well, the lease would be with the landlord or the property owner. But we did find out that it's the landlord has roof rights there, so, anyway, so they would renegotiate with them landscape, another 20 or a 5-year or whatever, but all those panels would be replaced because that's about to start.
Okay, so should the company or the building owner decide not to continue with any solar, who is responsible for removing them and recycling them or throwing, putting them where they're supposed to go? Okay, but that will come at 20 years at that time. Okay, thank you.
Seeing nobody else, we'll close the public comment on agenda items only and move to discussion of commissioners. Commissioner Romanek?
Yes, Vice Mayor, I just got a question for you. Is there any progress on the old Public Works EMS building? It's been stationary. Is there any update coming forth?
Yeah, what happened is we had issued a change order, as you know.
Yep.
At the last meeting. And again, we ran into problems with the contractor. We entered in the process of rebidding it. So we will rebid it and then continue, so it's another delay,
Wonderful.
an unfortunate delay that I don't like, you don't like, and really nobody likes, but
Business.
we are bound by contract law, as you know and I know. He was a low bidder, and shortly we'll have another bidder.
Very well done.
Whatever legal battle ensues afterwards.
Exactly. All right. My only discussion of commissioner for myself. That's it.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Mr. Watson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, an interesting thing happened. So when we were talking about EMS, I think somewhere we got revenue confused with profit. So the new guy in charge of Inspire EMS happens to be ex-County Commissioner Dorelli. So when he watched, he called the CFO and wanted to know how we were making money because they weren't. So once I found that out, I wanted to know what was going on. So when I asked, if you just look at salaries and wages and projected revenue, we end up $150,000 ahead. But there's this little thing called other expenses. So we have postage, we have maintenance of motor vehicles, which is about 17 grand a year. Maintenance for other equipment, we have insurance, taxes, pension. In the end, we're losing about we lost $746,000 last year, and this year we will lose $762,000 due to the increased cost of insurance and benefits. So we have to, while it is a revenue producer, it's not a profit producer. So I just wanted to explain that to the public before anybody else wants to know how our financial expertise in getting us making money with it or not. So to clear up any misunderstanding there, and that's all I have.
Appreciate the clarification. I don't have any comments at this time. We have any new business that I'm not seeing on this?
There is no new business, and I'm sure this time.
Okay, perfect. All right, go to public comment portion. If anybody would like to address the commission with any questions or comments, please come to the podium, state your name, and limit those comments to 5 minutes, please.
Mary Messick here of Millville. Going back to the letter dealing with the library, I don't know if it still holds, but at one time, Five Below offered a thing for different organizations and whatnot, that they print out the flyer, you can extend it from one date to another date, whether it be a month or 6 months or whatever. As long as somebody would bring in that flyer with a certain portion of the total sales of that individual would go towards, would be set aside, and then they would send that, whether it's the library, it's the PTA, or whatever, they would send them a check for what the total would be for that percentage. That could be one way they could obtain the money towards paying their electric bill.
That's a good idea, but my only question would be, does it have to be like a registered nonprofit?
No.
Seeing nobody else, we'll close the public comment portion for the work session and go to closing comments of commissioners.
All good.
Commissioner Watson?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time.
All right, nothing at this time. And so we just need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?
Second.
All in favor?